Welcome back. All right, so one change that's being made with the new set and the new setup is for news videos, I won't have the board behind me anymore. The news board is on that side. I can read it from here, but I don't need it behind me, and so there you go. That's the only instance so far where I can see that taking place, but we'll see. Other evolutions to the channel may take place too, where I'm not necessarily needing a whiteboard in the background for every video. All right, so let's start things off talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs going into tonight. The Toronto Maple Leafs have Bunting returning to their lineup tonight. They didn't really miss him that much in the first game. No offense to Michael Bunting, but they didn't need him in order to win that game, which, I mean, the good news is he's coming back, so that makes their attack potentially even better, right? They win 5-0 in game one. Also, William Nylander revealing that he had food poisoning. He was throwing up before game one. Played pretty well. Had plenty of fast break opportunities. Just couldn't quite get those to go in the net, but he played well. And Kyle Clifford, of course, has been suspended one game in due to the cross-check boarding that he was guilty of in the first game. So he won't play in game two. He'll be back for game three. I don't anticipate there's going to be any less physicality in this game. I'm kind of looking forward to, I think we'll probably see more physicality in the next game as well. Next up, Jim Rutherford. So he raised some eyebrows at a press conference yesterday, basically stating that Bruce Boudreau, he wants him back. They want to keep Bruce Boudreau as coach, but under the terms of the current agreement, which is a 2-year agreement. And when they were talking to him about how well the Canucks played, he said, but it wasn't a full season, which is true, but still, they had a fantastic record under Boudreau. I would imagine that there'll be plenty of Canuck fans that will be nervous in the event that Boudreau does not return. But the plan is to have him come back for that final year of his contract. Rutherford also saying he doesn't think it'll be a distraction if you've got a coach that's on the final year of his contract. I guess he wasn't paying any attention when Travis Green was in that situation with Vancouver. Remember, and everybody got all worked up and all upset because, well, the Canucks clearly are hosing the guy and they don't like him, and they should be nicer to him, and he's a really good coach. And then they re-signed him, and he gets off to that slow start, and then those same people are yelling, "Fire him, fire him, fire him," and then they didn't fire him quickly enough. So, anyways, but yeah, Green got his contract eventually. So again, coaches signing contracts doesn't necessarily mean job security, but I understand the discussion of lame duck coaches and all that other fun stuff. I don't see Boudreau as a lame duck coach if he decides to come back, but it does mean he can entertain other offers until June 1st. So another team may come in and swoop up Bruce Boudreau. So that being said, let's talk about Dallas and Vancouver, Dallas and Calgary. So the chirping has already begun. Klingberg saying that Anderson's not as tough as he thinks he is. Well, he punched Klingberg in the head a bunch last night, as far as I could see. So clearly, these teams are one-ups, or getting into that whole one-upsmanship and the chirping back and forth. And so that makes for a better series. I expect that game two will probably be completely different than the first game. The one thing that won't change is the dislike between these two teams. But Dallas has to figure it out. If they can't figure out Markstrom over, the length of game two, then they're in definite trouble. Being down 2-0, even though they wouldn't have gone home yet, I would not be overly optimistic regarding how the rest of that series may end up going. All right. Lindy Ruff. So the discussion of whether or not Ruff's going to come back, there is no decision that's been made public as of yet. I would think the Devils have a good idea of whether or not he's coming back. However, they've decided to let his assistants go, including Mark Recchi, Elan Nasruddin being the other. So if you are of the mind that, assistant coaches being fired could be a sign that the head coach is going to go as well, okay, but there's also been cases too where assistant coaches go and the head coach stays in place. So it really depends on whether or not the Devils as an organization believe that Lindy Ruff was holding the team back or all this other fun stuff. And again, we don't know yet. I would honestly be kind of surprised if the Devils brought him back for next season. But stranger things have happened. So yeah, we'll see what happens with the New Jersey Devils and their coaching situation. Next up, Louis Domingue. So last night for the Pittsburgh Penguins, Louis Domingue becomes kind of a folk story or a folk hero, right? And it's really fun with Louis Domingue. He's one of my favorite follows on Twitter. He's a chef, and when he was asked what he had before last night's fantastic run, and he makes 17 straight saves to get the triple overtime win, he said he had spicy pork and broccoli. So there you go. There's the breakfast of champions, the dinner of champions, however you want to look at it. I'm just glad Louis Domingue's getting a shot in the NHL. I understand that he's the third option for the Pittsburgh Penguins. It's unlikely that it goes much further than this, but I mean, if DeSmith is out, Domingue showed last night he can hold the net, at least for now. And sometimes playoff hockey can bring out the best in certain players, especially when it comes to goaltenders. There have been plenty of really good playoff stories with goalies. At some point during the offseason, I could do a video on that as well. And so, yeah, I'm happy for Domingue because he's always seemed like a really nice guy. He's bounced around from team to team to team, and here he is starring for the Pittsburgh Penguins last night. Good to see. Good story. All right, next up. So we've talked about the playoffs and home ice advantage. And we went into, this team wants home ice advantage. And then we also saw towards the end of the season some teams not playing like it was that big of a deal. So out of the 8 games that have been played so far, 4 of them have been won by home teams. So 4 of them have been won by road teams. So home ice hasn't really made any kind of difference. Even though, yes, you get great crowds and it's a lot of fun to see those crowds, cheering their team on and rooting them on and all that. But in terms of the on-ice result, in some cases I think it may help, but I also think it can help fire up road teams too, where that energy, that crowd, they feel that, and they kind of revel in the idea of taking that energy away. And so that's the challenge they give themselves. But we'll see whether or not home ice matters by the end of these series. Not every team that won the first game of the series is going to win. Historically, it's about 60% that win game 1 end up winning the series. So, that could end up being the case. But at this point, it's not. Not yet. All right, next up. So the Colorado Avalanche going into into last night's game, they were perfectly healthy for the first time in a long time. They were healthy enough that Alex Newhook was a healthy scratch. Well, Newhook will be back in the next game, I would think, because both Cogliano and Sturm got hurt last night. So I think it was the fact that they're like, hey, we're fully healthy. Well, the hockey gods heard that, and they decided we can't have that, and so injuries take place. But it is the playoffs. It is the war of attrition. And the good news is Colorado has a ton of depth. So with the amount of depth that the Colorado Avalanche have, I think they'll be just fine. And for Nashville, we'll see whether or not they can bounce back in game 2. They're saying all the right things after game 1, that, that just went awful and couldn't have gone worse for us. But it's about what happens in game 2, because if they don't turn it around in game 2, the series could be over very, very quickly. I know a lot of people predicted that, but as I said, you can't really necessarily tell. Because last night Washington beat Florida, and Washington was supposed to be way over their heads too. All right, last item for today is Igor Shesterkin. Last night he saved 79 out of 83 in a loss. He got close to the record. The record, of course, was set by Joonas Korpisalo in 2020. He saves 85 against Tampa Bay, also in a loss. So that was a 3-2 loss that they suffered. And just a ridiculous amount of saves. Now, they started tracking saves in a game in 1955-56. That's when shot tracking starts taking place. So it's possible there were some greater save numbers back before then, and we just don't have them tracked. But in all likelihood, they didn't face necessarily the quality of the shots or the amount of pressure that you face now. I'm just saying, in all likelihood, and possibly, because I won't speak for those goaltenders or for those eras. But there you go. Let me know your thoughts regarding any of these items. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.